Hey, girlfriends, welcome back to Girl Talk. I am so excited to have a special guest with us today. We have Christa Ragland here, and I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a quick moment. But I wanted to first start off by saying Christa has a unique story in the way she was raised. Of course, she might not think so. But I loved it. We chatted at coffee the other day, and it really, she just kept making a statement that stood out to me, and that was that she just knew her mom was doing the best she could. And that when Christa gets into her story, you'll understand it a little bit more. But it reminded me of a book that I had read by Lisa Bevere. And she said, do you truly believe that everyone's just trying their best? And when Christa was making that statement about, I just knew my mom was trying the best that she could, it kept reminding me of this book that I read. And that statement has been something that has really just been on my mind constantly. And it helps you so you're not judging other people or just getting very angry. And when Christa shares her story, we'll see she didn't have any anger or bitterness in her story when I feel she had every right to. And I could really see where that statement of she just knew her mom was trying her best really made way for a beautiful story. And so that's what I'm so excited to share with you guys today. The way we both grew up was completely different. So I'm excited to let Christa introduce yourself. So do you maybe tell us, you're married, how many kids you have, and kind of where you're at right now, and then we'll jump back to the past.
Sure. I'm Christa Ragland, and I'm happily married with 4 amazing children, all 6 and under. So it's a very hectic household, but it's definitely a lot of fun. And I also work full-time as a federal agent, along with my husband, who does the same thing. So definitely a busy life, but a good one.
And I will add, Christa, even though you have 4 kids under 6, I have never seen Christa lose her temper or feel a little short. And we go to the same church, so I have an opportunity to see her. But I'm always amazed. The kids will be tagging on her skirt, needing something, and she just has the calmest personality. And I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
I always walk away thinking, how does she do that?
So I think if you just laugh, you know?
That's a good point. But I always wonder if it's your background in the federal agent that has taught you to just keep that calm face and stay calm, or?
You know, I feel like getting upset doesn't accomplish anything.
Good
so
point.
Sometimes it's better just to laugh about it, you know. It wasn't too many Sundays ago when Clara was being a little shy, and she lifted up my dress to hide.
Oh my goodness.
And so, you know, all I could do is laugh, you know.
I guess that's good. That would be better than getting angry or crying about it. But
right.
Oh my goodness. That's what they say. Kids will keep you humble. That's for sure. Oh, so Christa, tell us maybe about your past, you know?
Okay, yeah. I grew up in a small town in Indiana, and it was just an amazing little community where there wasn't really crime, and the neighbors were great, and it was just a nice place to grow up. So my parents got divorced when I was about 8. And I thought it was going to be this really great thing because I really enjoyed my mom. But my dad was a little abusive. And so I thought I'm going to get all the good with my mom and none of what I don't like. But really, at that age, you really don't have the ability to see the whole picture. And what turned out to be the case was it turned out where neither one of them were really able to take care of themselves at that point, being on their own and being divorced, being single. Together they were able to kind of manage a little better than being single. And so it wound up to be a situation where they couldn't really take care of themselves very well, let alone taking care of 2 children. And we went with my mom, and she didn't graduate from college or really have any great job skills. So she was making minimum wage and not really able to really take care of her responsibilities in the way that she needed to.
Or add any extra even.
Yeah.
Just barely keeping her head above water.
Yeah, and I think she found it to be too much because after about a year, we went to move in with her mom. And after about a year, I think she realized she couldn't keep up with it all. So she actually sent us back to live with our dad for a year. And we were pretty devastated about that because she couldn't live with him, but, you know, she had to send us back to live with him. And
so we stop right there. If you remember that point when you were a child, were you angry at your mom at that point, or how were you feeling?
You know, I was not happy about it. And I definitely voiced my opinion about it.
Sure.
But in the end, you know, after sulking for a day, probably, you know, I realized it was just what we had to do at the time. Wow. You know, it was just what we had to do at the time. And I did really like the town that we had lived in and that we lived in all the way growing up until going to college, except for that year that we had moved in with our grandma. So, you know, there's a lot of familiarity to me going back. And so I accepted it, you know, and we worked through it, and it was really just temporary. And she told us it would be temporary, just enough for her to kind of try and get on her feet and figure things out. So how were things with your dad? Were they any better, or? You know,
for that, you said it was a year, right?
Yes, year that you lived with him? A year. Yeah, he was an alcoholic, and he decided he was going to stop drinking, and he lost like 100 pounds doing that. And he was never really abusive toward me for some reason, but my brother, he was. And so he had gotten angry and taken it out on my brother a couple times. My mom had got wind of it and explained that she was going to call the police if she heard of any more of that. And that was the end of it. And then he had stopped drinking and lost the weight, and things were manageable. Things were definitely manageable. My brother definitely took the brunt of the abuse growing up, but that did stop. That did come to a stop.
And your brother was younger or older?
He's 2 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah. I think back in the day, you know, dads maybe, well, at least his dad, my dad's dad, might have come home from work and put the boys in line, but maybe been a little soft on the girls.
Sure.
And I think that might have been where he had gotten that from.
Yeah.
But
now, I remember you sharing with me a story that your friend had shared with you recently about the year that you lived with your dad. And and I just am amazed at your outlook. So I'll let you share the story.
Yeah, you know, he wasn't really taking care of us. You know, we lived there.
Yeah.
We ate out of cans. We ate canned food. You know, he'd tell us what cans we could open and eat from. But he wasn't really taking care of us other than that, except for that we had a house and cans of food. You know, he paid the bills. So there was always heat and water and things like that. But other than that, that was about it. So like no real guidance or supervision or direction. And my friend reminded me that in my 5th grade year that I wore the same shorts, the same pair of shorts for the whole year. And I had forgotten that was the case, but I do recall that that was the case. And I just had to laugh about it because I was like, yeah, that did happen. And it just goes to show, you know, you can put things behind you and not let it, you know, cause you a problem down the line.
And that's what I love about all of this. And you just mentioned it now. You laughed about it. I mean, that's very traumatic for a child, you know, especially when you're not getting the care that you need when you're unable to do it for yourself. And so many times other people in those situations could have become so bitter or so angry. And you can see this happy glow in your face. And it's because you've chosen to just believe the positive. I just think that's amazing. That's
you know, those things were not the most important to me growing up. In terms of like material things or what we had, like we had more fun spending time with our friends and like riding our bikes and all those other type of things, that it just wasn't real important to me, that it probably would have affected a different child more. Yeah. You know, some children, you know, are different from other children. And in that one particular area, I was okay with it.
Yeah.
You know, I was okay with it. And, but it did motivate me to start working from a young age and try and start saving money and be able to buy things for myself and to be able to, you know, buy my school clothes and pay the sports fees to be involved in sports. And I had done sports from like 6th grade to my senior year. And I think my dad came to 1 game the whole time, and my mom maybe 2. So there's a lot of years, a lot of practices of figuring out logistics and rides and fees and, the whole 9 yards. It's a lot for a kid
to do,
but
yes.
Where there's a will, there's a way. And I wanted to do it. And my parents could help me more, I think, but that wasn't where their mind was at the time. Like I said, they had a hard enough time taking care of themselves, I think. And so I made it happen. And I got a lot of help from the community. My friends' parents would give me rides, or my friends would give me rides, or, we'd figure it out. And, it worked out.
Yeah.
It definitely worked out.
So, but you didn't allow the bitterness to set in either. So when you're riding with a friend who has a different home life, it could be very easy to sit in that situation and be bitter and why God can't I have that? But then you're just tenacity to figure it out and to do better for yourself, I think it speaks volumes here.
Yeah, I did want to have a home where like my mom and my dad were there and they're cooking and I'm doing my homework, like a warm home.
Yes.
And really it was more of no one was really there usually, and I would go hang out at my friends' houses, a lot. Sure. I spent a lot of time with my friends and at their houses where they kind of had more of that atmosphere. And so I still got like to be in the environment I wanted to be.
Yeah.
It was just a little different than I was hoping for.
Oh.
But I knew I was going to do something different than my parents, make some different choices and wind up in a different situation.
That's amazing.
For sure.
So you were with your dad for a year. Was there any church at this point?
I started going to church with my friends that went. So we had a lot of little different churches in town. I think I had been to like all of them through, the course of growing up. So not any one for like a real long time, but I did go, depending on who my friends were that year, who was in town that year and where they went, I would go with them.
Sure.
So in my my dad's family is very heavily Catholic. Okay. And so anytime we had any type of family get-togethers on his side, we were always going to Catholic church.
Okay.
So I had a little bit of variety in terms of like exposure.
Sure.
Yep.
So where did your mom step back in? How did that transition work?
She had been around. We just weren't living with her.
Okay.
So she, her mom had a stroke about that time. And so she was trying to take care of her mom. And she had also gotten pregnant with my younger brother, who's 11 years younger than me. And she had moved in with my little brother's dad. And at the end of our school year, she was going to have us move in with her there with my little brother's dad.
Okay.
And I had chickenpox, actually, at the time. And she was pregnant, so it wasn't safe.
Sure.
So after I had gotten over the chickenpox, that's what we did. And it was not a great experience at first because I think that was a lot for my younger brother's dad to take on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because now it's his fiance and his pregnant fiance and her 2 children.
Sure.
And my mom was also taking care of her mom who had a stroke, who moved in right next door.
Wow, and so, that's a lot of responsibility, a lot of change.
Yeah, I'll never forget, we were moving in and we were bringing our stuff in the back door and he just yelled at us he's like, shut that door. Like we had left the door open a little too long. No. Maybe we were letting the air conditioning out or something.
Cooling the outside.
And I was like, uh-oh, this might not be such a great dynamic,
Sure.
And I think that's what it was. I think it was probably he's going from living by himself to all of this craziness.
Yeah.
And I could see that being difficult, So we did that. We lived there for about, maybe a year or 2, and it really just wasn't working out. And actually, what had happened is my grandma had died of a stroke. Oh, okay. She had had a stroke and had strokes in the past and was recovering, and ultimately she had a stroke that killed her. And then that's when we moved into our own place.
Okay.
And lived there until I graduated.
Okay.
So yeah, it was, but all in the same town, all in the same community, same teachers. And so there's a lot of stableness to the situation.
Yeah,
For as unstable as it might seem, it was still stable in other ways,
I love that. And I love your perspective on all of it. And you choose to see the good in all those different situations. And that, I believe, is what's given you this beautiful life. It's and the desire to do something different. But how did you get to college? Okay, so, growing up, difficult childhood, and then how do you change that? So speaking specifically, if we've got a high schooler or a young college student, that's dealing with this right now, how could we help them through this? So kind of what was your story after that?
I knew that I wanted to do something different. And I had enough influence to see that I needed to get an education in order to have other opportunity in life. So I planned on going, I did well enough in school. I had planned on going to college from a pretty early age. I was motivated because I worked, in the cornfields, a little farm town, detasseling the corn, and I worked at a little grocery store.
Detasseling corn is a hot, dirty job.
Right?
Wow.
I would do that. I worked at the grocery store, and I also would mow lawns. So I would do a little bit of everything, babysat a little bit. But I knew I was going to go to college and get an education and have some more options was my plan. And it's an exciting thing to go to college and have that experience and
that independence.
Yeah. And I didn't want to feel like left behind either. Like nobody wants to stay in town when everyone else is going to school.
Same age, yes.
Well, it works for some people though, but I wanted to do something different. So I didn't have a lot of money because I had to pay for everything myself. So I just took the SAT once and I didn't do any of the prep, course or studying for that. So I did just well enough, just to get into college. And, I was looking at different colleges. I was trying to figure out which one I was going to go to. I knew I wanted to go for business. So I was looking at who had the best business program, what was the cost, who was the most expensive, least expensive, where were they located. And also I wanted to do boxing. So I had learned that that is usually run through police athletic leagues in the communities. And so I called down to the Muncie Police Department for Ball State because Ball State and IU were kind of my two top contenders. And Muncie had a police athletic league and Bloomington didn't. And that's pretty much how I decided. And so, I just followed all the steps and filled out all the paperwork. And some of my other friends were going through the same, steps at that point too. So I was kind of doing it alongside of them.
Sure.
My parents never helped with any of that. My mom did help drive me to school the first time I went. Aww. So that was nice to have her help me move in, Yeah. But other than that, I did it all on my own. And, it can be done, it can be done. If, there's a will, there's a way. And I didn't have a lot of help, but I think that it's kind of helped me to be more independent too. Yeah. And more of like do-it-yourself type of person.
Sure.
So kind of like figuring out solutions to things on your own. So there's different benefits, you know, to that type of upbringing, for sure.
So I love the story too, how you met your husband, Colin.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that's how I met Christa was, I was working in the children's ministry at our church and her husband is head of security. And so we went to a conference all about like church security. And I didn't really know Colin and Christa at all. And then he started telling us about, I don't know why, but he told us about Christa's story. And that's how I found out. This is amazing. And he said he met you through boxing. And I thought, what? I know Christa does not look like a boxer, but she is a boxer. But then when I talked to Christa, I got her scoop of how he stalked her for like a year. And I think it's so funny.
Right.
So-
Of course, I was oblivious to it all. I didn't even take note of what was happening.
You were just out for a run, right?
Yeah, like there was a lot of different things that happened that I didn't really connect all the dots. I was out for a run and I happened to pass him and he knew my name. And I was like, oh, I had talked to him once at the Police Athletic League. And I think I might have mentioned like his haircut one time. And, you know, I really didn't have a lot of interaction with him except for I had met him and seen him around. And so I'm on this run and he passed me going the other way and he knew my name. I was like, oh, I'm surprised you remember that. And, you know, that had happened once. And one time he had asked me a ride home. I guess he purposely had walked up there or something or got a ride up there so that he would need a ride home.
And is that when he asked if you had a boyfriend?
No.
Oh, okay.
You know, okay, so then there was that story where I was walking back from class with...
Which I just love that you were oblivious, how you're out running and he's like, hi, Kristen. You're like, oh, hi, you run here too?
Yeah.
And then to find out later, like, no, I was stalking you.
Yeah. So he knew the route that I ran because he also was in a program at the Police Athletic League for jiu-jitsu. So it was kind of insider information, you know. But one of the other guys that did jiu-jitsu with him was in my dorm. And I would walk back to class. We had a class across the street together. So we would walk to the class and back to the dorm regularly. And I knew he was in the jiu-jitsu program too. And he asked if I had a boyfriend. And I wasn't sure why he was asking. So I was like, yes, I do. Definitely have a boyfriend. And so turns out he was asking for Colin to find out. And of course, I didn't know that. So there was that obstacle. And there was a time when I was driving with my friends on like maybe a Friday night or a Saturday night. And we were driving around town to different places. And he was in the area. And I happened to drive past him in the alley and I didn't know it. And he hit my car. And I was like, oh. And I think I just stepped on the gas. I was like, I don't know what that was. I think I just stepped on the gas. And so I think that put a little stall on things for a while because he wasn't sure what, you know, if I just didn't like him or if I thought he was crazy or, you know, this or that. And then also he had invited me to come to one of his matches. He was doing a no holds barred competition and he invited me to come and I told him I would be there. And then I was in the Army Reserve at the time and they had changed our weekend for our drill. And so I had a schedule conflict and I wasn't.
Which you got into the Army Reserve to help financially? Was that what it was?
Yeah. Okay. I did it to help pay for college.
Yeah.
Yep. And which, by the way, was a great experience. And I would recommend to anyone who's looking to get extra money for college or an extra skill or just to see a different insight into a whole different like subculture of our country. Yeah. But so I missed his fight after telling him I thought I would be there.
Oh, no.
And of course, I didn't think about calling him and saying, oh, hey, I can't come because of my Army Reserves. I just didn't show up.
Right.
You know, because I barely knew him anyway. I kind of just mentioned in passing, oh, yeah, I'd like to come. I think I can make it. And then I didn't come. So then.
And he's looking at it like she's going to be here. We committed to this. And you're just like, oh, I thought it was just a, hey, if you want to come, come.
Right. Yeah. And so I didn't show up to that. So there were like a lot of little obstacles over, you know, the time. And I never really put it all together or anything. And it's probably good in terms of timing because it gave me a chance to kind of have fun with my girlfriends and not have other concerns. Whereas maybe if I had, you know, started any type of relationship before that, maybe I wouldn't have worked out so well.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then how did you both get into being a federal agent?
Well, he was interested in that in high school. Oh. He had talked to an FBI agent and asked a lot about the job and done some research. And he was going to school for criminal justice.
Okay.
And so it was something that he had intended to pursue seriously. And I went to school and had a counselor say, oh, you should consider federal law enforcement because you're going to school for accounting and you're in the Army Reserve. And I think it would be a good fit. And so we were both kind of going down that path in college. Sure. He got out of college and realized he could really only get a job at a police department at that point because you really have to have some job experience or something that separates you from everybody else.
Okay.
Especially when you first come out of college. And, I went into accounting because I wasn't pursuing federal law enforcement as heavily as he was at that time. And ultimately, he decided to go back to law school, because school was easy for him. And we actually had some other friends that were in law school. And I was in school and had a professor. It was actually Tom McDermott.
Wow.
He's the mayor in Hammond.
Yes.
And he was actually my professor for like a business law class.
Interesting.
And he had like worked at NIPSCO and got his like law degree. And so there was just like all these lawyers around. It seemed like at the time I was just like, hey, maybe you should consider this. And that's exactly what he did. He got it. And, he graduated, passed the bar, became an attorney. And then he got picked up really fast as a federal agent. Oh. He got hired with the Secret Service like right away.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I realized, well, if I'm going to do it too, we should probably try for the same agency because with the relocations, I don't know how else it would work. And ultimately, I got hired too. And the rest is kind of history with that. We did the Secret Service. He did it for 10 years. I did it for about a little over 7. And then we started seriously planning a family and knew that was not going to be a lifestyle that was going to really pan out.
And when we say federal agent, Secret Service, like that was for presidents.
Yeah.
So,
so
a big deal, I feel like.
they do a lot of protection. That's their number one mission. And so they do the president, the vice president, their families, all the former presidents, the former president's wives. They do any head of state that comes to the United States, and foreign dignitaries, and sometimes some members of the cabinet get it, and it's based on security, level of threat, and those types of decisions. But it's just starting out with the Secret Service, we were assigned to a field office. And as those people would travel to our area, we would assist with the protection. Okay. And then also we would travel to other areas who needed help with protection. And so it wasn't our number one responsibility. Okay. For starting out, but investigations was. And so we got to, do a lot with investigations, and then that kind of led to us transferring ultimately when we were ready to have a family to other agencies, based on our connections and our network, and something that was a little more manageable and sustainable for having kids.
A family. Yeah. Yes. Do you have a favorite place that you were stationed at or visited?
I think I just tried to enjoy, wherever I was at the time. We moved to Milwaukee. Okay. And that was fun. And then back to Chicago, and then out to DC. And, I think I enjoyed each step of it. Yeah.
Different areas. It's so neat. Well, I want to see, that's really what I wanted to share with our Girl Talk friends here, is really just where Christa's at in her life now compared to where she came from. And I really just wanted her to be able to share some hope and some wisdom of how she came through a difficult child rearing, and how she's successful now, and where she's at with her family now. So Christa, I think, do you want to give us any more parting words, any more advice to somebody else that's maybe going through a divorce or just really struggling?
Well, in terms of being in a bad situation, and, not losing faith in my mom, really what it came down to me was just, I knew that she was doing the best she could, and even though her best wasn't quite cutting it all the time, she still loved us a lot, and it was her best. Like, you don't have to be your best. You don't have to be the best. You just have to be your best. And my husband reminds me that he's like, do you think your childhood was 20 times better than hers? And I would say yes, it was. So from where she came from and how well she was prepared for the world, she did the best she could, which was better than some people could have done.
Yeah.
And maybe not as well as other people could have done. So, and when you're going through a difficult situation with someone, it feels like you're more of a team with them, and that's what it felt like for us. So it was easy to stay positive and feel good about a situation because, I knew that she was doing the best she could with it,
I love that. And I love how you just said that you have to be your best, and it's not the competition against someone else. But I love that through all of this, you just realized what is Christa's best, and I'm not going to sit here and judge my mom or anything, but I'm just going to say, she did the best she could. I'm going to truly believe that. And then what's my best? Where can I show up 100%?
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. It makes a difference. And also, I think it's important for people to realize that, you can make your life what you want it. It doesn't really necessarily matter where you come from or what your circumstances are, but we live in the United States of America. It is a beautiful thing, and there's so much opportunity here. People come from all over the world to find the American dream. And so I think it's important, just to remember, you make your life what you want it,
Christa, thanks for sharing that, because this has inspired me so much. But just being reminded of that, I came from a lot, but I can still be what I want. So it still encourages me to show up every single day and to pursue those dreams and those goals and 100% be me.
Right.
And reach my potential. So I appreciate
absolutely.
that. Christa, if we have someone that wants to connect with you, are you open to that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you want to send us a message here, I will put you in touch with Christa. If you are struggling or going through a hard situation and you just want to reach out and have a listening ear, I would definitely recommend Christa. She has been a good friend, getting to know her better, and I've really enjoyed it. So Christa, thanks for sharing your story today. I know it's going to encourage so many, and continue to share and share the Girl Talk podcast so we can help those that are hurting. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you next week.